our members, LAC members.
All right, so let's officially kick things off. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm Andrea Wilkins. I'm the legislative liaison with the State League. And, my primary responsibility is to provide logistical and technical support to all of you and guide our advocacy efforts, make sure that you have what you need to, be part of our citizen lobbying corps, which is really one of the most visible and impactful things that we do as a state league. So please don't hesitate to reach out for support if you need that, if you have questions. And fortunately, I am joined in this role by Maud and Linda. And I will turn it over to them just for a second. I don't know if either of you want to say anything. Okay. Well, please also look to Maud and Linda as a source of support as well. And I know Beth is on the call as well. Beth, do you have any greetings or information to share?
Always happy to say hi. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for your energy and hard work. I would like to share the agenda for the legislative the legislative conference, and talk to you a bit about that. But unfortunately, I'm not completely prepared, but give me a quick sec. I hope to see as many of you there as possible. I'm kind of psyched about this agenda.
The agenda is awesome. Thank you, Beth.
Sure. It's not pretty yet, but it will be before it's sent out today. So we'll be hearing from Representative Marshall along with Senator Doherty on vacancy committee reform. John Caldera, the president of the Independence Institute, will be speaking on our collaboration to protect Colorado's open meetings laws and prevent any negative actions around CORA. Andrea will talk about the Voting Rights Act, which I'm looking forward to today's discussion about that. Governor Polis will talk about Governors Saving Democracy, that movement. Marcia Johnson, the new chief counsel of LWVUS, who took Selena's place when she was made CEO, will be speaking about LWVUS's plans. We've got an immigration panel. Folks talking about how to prepare for potential raids. Cirque will tell us about Know Your Rights in kind of a train the trainer format so that we might be able to advocate personally for immigrants, both individually and as a group. And also, this one, I had asked a reporter from Chalkbeat to discuss her article around how immigration raids affect schools and children. She just had to cancel because her nephew's getting baptized, and that is definitely more important. So I've requested Dr. Carla Loria, who's the superintendent of Adams 14 schools, which has a very high immigrant population. And then, of course, our own dear action and advocacy team will present on LWVCO's priorities. So any questions there? Happy to answer them. And I don't think there's anything else I really need to say. So thank you so much. Appreciate y'all.
All right, thank you, Beth. Okay, let's shift now to our bill discussion. And as we do that, if people wouldn't mind putting your name and issue area in the chat, I think it'll help us all get familiar as our meetings kick off for the session, who's doing what, and kind of which people you should be looking to if you need to reach out and collaborate on a bill that potentially crosses more than one issue area. That would be really helpful. And then I would actually like to start with a question for the voting and elections team, kind of picking up on Beth's mention of the Colorado Voting Rights Act, which is Senate Bill 1. I didn't specifically hear from the team about anyone that wanted to speak to this. I guess I'm not quite sure where the team is in your thank you. In your review and analysis. I can certainly provide an overview of the bill itself, but I just wanted to pause and see if there was anyone from the voting and elections team that was planning to speak to the bill today.
So I would say not. We kind of were a little confused and thinking that you would do it, and because it's been handled by the state league, and they've been very involved in as stakeholders and stuff. So we were a little confused, and we didn't do anything.
Well, thank you for that, Peggy. I appreciate that. It's making me think I should have communicated with you all a little more, so so that you guys wouldn't have felt confused. So I apologize for that. But yes, this one, this bill, I think is being handled a little bit differently than just kind of our typical process. And the reason for that is that there's been a series of ongoing stakeholder meetings that have taken place at least on a monthly basis for well over a year now. And Beth and I have been participating in those throughout. LWVCO is one of the initial members of the stakeholder group that has come together to essentially develop the language and kind of coordinate the effort around the Colorado Voting Rights Act. And we're also a member of the steering committee. And Beth has actually probably been more present in the steering committee meetings than me. Beth, I don't know if you want to say anything about those.
Well, this developing and passing state VRAs became a priority of the Harvard Law School Election Law Clinic, and they partnered with Common Cause nationally to pick certain states to create and pass VRAs. So the Election Law Clinic reached out to Common Cause, and then directly, because we have a lovely former board member who works at the Election Law Clinic, and said, well, you should probably get the League of Women Voters involved. So Common Cause and the League were the two first organizations to delve into this. And yeah, it's been probably closer to 2 years, really. But I would need to check some emails to figure out the exact date. But thank you for discussing this, and I look forward to any questions.
Thanks, Beth, for that context. Yeah, it's been a pretty long road to get to the point where we are now. So after many conversations with the Harvard Election Law Clinic and lots of review of model legislation, which at various points has gotten sent out to the voting and elections team, it's been shared with the elections task force. It's been shared with specific members of the league. Specifically, I'm thinking of Jen Clellan with the Boulder County League, who has a lot of expertise in elections related data collection and experience using the data that is currently available to conduct racially polarized voting analysis and some other things to determine compliance with the federal VRA for purposes of redistricting through the independent redistricting commissions. Through her work there, she really noticed a deficiency in some of the data that would allow for, basically a credible analysis of racially polarized voting. And she had pointed out to us this piece of what eventually ended up in the Colorado VRA. She had pointed out to us well over 2 years ago, she along with Beth Maliskov, that information would be needed on precinct level voter information or voting related information, and that we would need to collect information on primary elections consistently. Right now, I believe the Colorado statute provides for that just in odd years, but that we would need a consistent collection. And the idea behind, our collaboration with her and Beth on this was to, and this might be a little more background than you all need, but to just kind of give you a sense of the full history here. That led to some conversations with both the Secretary of State and the state demographer to figure out if we could work through the departments to improve data collection as kind of an immediate step before we had the opportunity to get legislation together that could address this issue. So our work initially started with trying to improve the data collection that was taking place at the department level, and there were some improvements that were made. The idea is to get the data in good shape. So come 2030, when the commissions meet again to redraw the lines, they've got a good history to work with. And so sort of out of that effort, when LWVCO first came to the table to start working on the Colorado VRA, one of the key things that we really brought to the forefront was the need for this data collection effort and improvement to be put in this bill. So we knew that the bill was going to look at a whole host of things, and there were many things that were priorities for us, but I would really credit the league for the fact that this piece of the bill exists. So we're really excited about that. And I will say that, other organizations readily saw the value of this. So it isn't as if, we had to convince people that, this needed to be done. The coalition was fully on board from the start. But, really, I think the fact that this language has been put in the bill from the start and has, been shaped by the feedback of experts such as Jen and Beth, I think is really a feather in our cap. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about that.
So and that part of the act, sorry, Andrea, is the data collection part is by far the least sexy part of this bill. It is pretty dull. It's not talking about discrimination so yay league, election geeks. Woohoo!
Yay, league. I fully agree with Beth. It is such an important part of the bill, but it is so classic league. It is like so down in the weeds. Just not that many people, understand the importance of what's happening with, the improvements that are being pursued here. And we're just thrilled that, our membership had the interest and knowledge to point out an issue like this that is really nuanced and requires a lot of technical expertise that's, just it doesn't get talked about in a lot of circles because it really is down in the weeds and kind of beyond.
Geeky.
Yes, kind of beyond, just what gets brought up in more casual conversations. So the bill does a lot of things, but I'll go ahead and start with what's happening there because we are so excited about it. The bill will be creating basically an office, or not an office. I don't know. Well, maybe it's an office. I can't remember exactly what the terminology is, but an entity within the Department of State to focus on election data collection and maintenance. And so it'll be basically an information office that will be responsible for collecting this heightened data at the precinct level, data consistently through primary elections. It will be housed over time. The retention period on it, as written in the bill, is 12 years. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that that 10-year historical data that would be needed by the redistricting commissions is there. So it's there plus a little more to allow for all the analysis that needs to take place to feed into a successful redistricting process. The data has to be made accessible to the public, which is really important for transparency purposes, and very helpful to researchers and others that, with technical expertise that assist the redistricting commissions. And it's basically going to require the build out of a database and probably the hiring of an individual with technical expertise to build that out, to maintain it. But essentially, we will, once this is up and running, we will historically have going forward the data that we had been hoping for all along to allow for the analysis that can support the work of the redistricting commissions. So that's one of the key pieces of the bill. The other key components that I want to touch on, so everybody has kind of a basic handle of what's happening here. There's really kind of 4 key components, and the improved election-related data collection is one component. The other 3 are improved access for voters living on tribal reservations, additional notice and support information for individuals with disabilities, and improved language access at the municipal level. Those are kind of like the buckets of information, and I can touch on each of those a little more thoroughly, but I also want to speak to it in kind of an overarching sense that, really the concern that kind of brought everybody to the table and, sort of the motivation is, of course, improved voting access. We know we've got a really great system in Colorado, but we also know that improvements are always possible, and, where we can tweak things and go a little further in our efforts to ensure that voters have access, that we are addressing possible discrimination and voter suppression in any way we can. That's always a good thing for us to be engaged in. We want to lead efforts there. But also just a lot of concern about, consistent dilution of the Federal Voting Rights Act, and, really a desire to see more state level protections to buffer against concerns that are happening across the country and at the federal level, where, potential voter suppression and just challenges associated with voter access are kind of cropping up. So one of the overarching goals, in addition to addressing all that, was to create specific protections that would help to fight against discriminatory voting rules and election practices, and increase the ability of communities, particularly communities of color, and groups that have historically fallen into protected classes, to be able to challenge unfair district maps or other election rules that might dilute their voting power. As a way of actually doing this, there is an important legal tool that's being created as a result of the Colorado VRA, and that's to create a private cause of action that would allow an individual or an organization that is deemed to have standing to bring, basically bring a lawsuit alleging voter discrimination or voter suppression. Obviously this has to be impacted individuals or organizations to have standing. I want to be clear in pointing out the league would certainly qualify as one of those entities that could bring claims of election discrimination or voter suppression, because this is where we're focused. It's part of our mission. If discriminatory practices are taking place, it essentially makes our job harder. So that's kind of how we derive standing to come forth as an organization to pursue a case there if we see these practices occurring. So that's a really important legal tool that would be created as a result of this act, and just wanted to make sure that I was mentioning that. Getting a little bit more into the weeds with the other 3 buckets that I mentioned. So in terms of registration on tribal reservations, some of what's happening there is that individuals that have an address that is not recognized by the U.S. Postal Service can register to vote with the address of the Tribal Council headquarters or any other address that's approved by the Secretary of the Tribal Council. And at least one such address has to be approved in each precinct on the reservation if it's requested by the Tribal Council. So just kind of opening up access there for people as they register. And then the Tribal Council can request a VSPC on the reservation for election day and for any number of days during the 15-day period leading up to the election. So that's a quick overview of what's happening in the tribal section of the bill. In the section that is providing supports for individuals with disabilities, what's happening there is that entities that are engaged primarily in providing state-funded services or programs to individuals with disabilities would be required to publicly display voting-related information in each of the buildings that the entity may operate. So if it's a one-building entity, facility, it just goes there. If it's a large entity that operates, on kind of a campus style or multiple buildings, information would have to be posted in all of those buildings. And the idea there is that, we really want to promote voter education and voter awareness of their rights. So the information that would be required here is information pertaining to voter registration, voting rights, voting related accessibility accommodations that are possible, and contact information for the Secretary of State Accessibility Coordinator. And then there would also have to be information provided on the location of the nearest drop box and VSPC to the facility. So that's kind of happening. That's what's happening with in regard to trying to better serve individuals with disabilities. There's also a provision in the bill. This is the third component, fourth being the elections related data that we've already talked about. So our final one that I wanted to point out is expansion of multilingual ballot access. I think most of our members, particularly those that have been involved with the LAC for several years, will recall that a few years back, we were involved in the effort to pass a bill that was focused on the provision of multilingual ballots to individuals residing in counties that met a threshold, essentially, so let's see, I'm not explaining this very well. For a county to be required to provide a multilingual ballot, that county needs to have a population of people that speak English less than very well and also speak a common language. And this would be determined by the American Community Survey via the Census Bureau. So that threshold is either 2,000 people speaking English less than very well, or 2.5% of the county's population. And in Colorado, I believe it's 20 counties that fall into this category. The counties are required to provide a sample ballot in the language that is spoken. And I believe throughout Colorado, Spanish is the language that is falling into this threshold. They have to provide that sample ballot so voters have an opportunity to kind of study and figure out how they want to vote in a language that's comfortable for them. And then if they want to vote that ballot in the other language, they would need to access that through their VSPC, I believe, to actually get a ballot that they can vote on in Spanish. So as it stands right now, there's 20 counties in Colorado that meet this threshold. This is all current law. What would happen as a result of the Colorado VRA is that we would see an expansion to municipalities that meet that same criteria. So the 2,000 people, or 2.5% of the municipalities. So we would see an expansion of multilingual ballot access to qualified municipalities as well. And like I said, then the fourth bucket of improvements that we're seeing is the election related data. So I think that kind of takes us through the main components of the bill. Beth, am I missing anything that we should be flagging? Voting and elections team, anything major I'm forgetting? Okay, so I will pause there and see if anybody, I know I'm taking up a lot of time. I'm completely violating our rule about trying to keep this discussion to the amount of time that we would typically provide testimony. I would have been kicked out of the committee hearing by now if that rule was applying to me. But I did want to make sure that everyone had a really good sense of kind of the history and the different components of this bill, given the fact that we have been one of the creators of the bill. So I just want to make sure the LAC is really, up to speed on what's happening here. Peggy, please jump in.
Yeah, just wondering about the problem with fiscal notes this year, because you talked about a new office and possibly a new person. And also, do we feel like there's a lot of support in the legislature, or is that going to be a big battle?
I do think that there is a lot of support for this. I know, like, one of the things that always kind of gets us excited is when a bill has got a really low number assigned to it. In this case, Senate Bill 1, it was the first bill introduced by the Senate. It's an indicator of a priority, and so we're really excited about that. We do think that there is a lot of support behind this bill. I failed to mention at the beginning that the sponsors on this bill, Senator Gonzalez, Julie Gonzalez, oops, sorry, the phone's going off in the background, is the prime sponsor in the Senate, who obviously was responsible for getting the bill introduced right off the bat. And then in the House, the prime sponsors are Representative Bacon and Representative Joseph. There's also a really large coalition behind the bill, and we're continuing to kind of build out and do more outreach, education. League will obviously be crucial in that effort as we go along. You bring up a great point, Peggy, about the budget concern, because I think as a general kind of rule, so to speak, that we're hearing is that anything with a fiscal note isn't going to go very far this year, since there's basically $1 billion hole in the budget. We haven't seen a fiscal note on this yet, but there has been a lot of discussion about the funding piece in regard to a lot of discussion on the fiscal side of it and the impact on the budget, with amongst the bill sponsors and the coalition, Secretary's office, and there's ongoing conversations with the state demographer too, because there's some technical pieces of the bill, particularly in relation to the election data collection piece, that are still kind of getting ironed out a little bit. To just kind of think through, how we actually implement that. So I think there's still some pieces in flux a bit, but the sense of the sponsors and the sense of the coalition is that there's still enough support to get this through, and that's, I think from a league perspective, when we think about investments in our democracy, that's definitely something that I think ranks as a very high priority and things that we would want to see scarce dollars allocated to. Strengthening our democracy obviously is key to getting anything else done in the state. So I think when it comes to, really kind of thinking through where we want to see those dollars go, as an organization, this is definitely something we would want to see the investment in. And, I think that would likely be something that would be part of our advocacy efforts, acknowledging that we are in a really difficult budget situation. So yeah, it's a tough situation, but we don't think it's prohibitive in this case. And Beth, I don't know if you have anything to add there in terms of kind of the fiscal side of things.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea.
Any other questions or comments, discussion around this? Okay, see none. I hope I have provided enough background. I know it's a big bill. It's around 35 or 40 pages. So there's a lot going on, but I hope that gives you enough information so we can establish a position on this. The coalition is aware that LAC was having this discussion today. So we do want to, make sure that we allotted time for any questions so people can feel like they're making an informed vote. Okay, seeing no hands. Is anyone opposed to us taking a support position on the bill? Okay, seeing none there. I think we are safe to assign a support, which is fantastic.
Can we say strongly support? Can I push y'all there?
Anyone opposed to a strongly support? Thanks, Beth, for that clarification. I should have mentioned that. I see, Peggy, I think I see some clapping hands.
That's in favor of strong support. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, we'll be a strongly support. And we will be happy to inform the coalition. And if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Beth and I. Coalition meetings will continue, both the full coalition meeting, which I actually think is taking place today. And Beth, I'm thinking
I'm about to drop off.
You're about to head out for that.
Yep.
So there may be some updates before we know it. And then the steering meetings, of course. So lots of discussion to take place. I will say that we are looking at probably a committee hearing in Senate State Affairs around mid-February. There are a few tweaks that have been raised by Jen and the voting elections team that I think are going to be addressed. We're not looking to make huge waves here because, significant amendments would be a challenge. But honestly, we're feeling pretty good about the state of the bill. And I think the tweaks that have been suggested by voting in elections are things that, fit right in with the type of tweaks that were already being contemplated. And
yeah, they're clarifying, not really amending.
Yeah. And that the reason the committee hearing is taking place mid-February is so that there's time to kind of figure out what all the pieces are that need to be ironed out a little bit further. And then Senator Gonzalez will plan to present that when it comes out for hearing. It is expected that there's going to be a lobby day on this bill on March 3rd. I don't think that's totally set in stone yet, so we'll keep you posted on that. But we would love, strong showing from the league. So if you could kind of keep that date in mind, and we will update you if anything changes.
And we'll give you lunch in our office. Come on down, see us, testify.
Yes, okay, well, I'll stop talking about the Colorado VRA now, and we'll move on to our regular bill list. Let's go with housing. Housing gets the award for having their bills in the earliest. So I'm going to turn it over to the housing team. I think you all have 4 bills. If I'm recalling the email discussion correctly, I think that you all want to discuss 2 of your priorities. And if we have time, we can loop back, but we may have to do an email vote on the other 2. And honestly, I think I neglected to indicate which were the 2 that you definitely wanted to discuss with the group. So I will turn it over to housing and let you guys take it from there.
Joe, do you want to go ahead?
Sorry, this is not a housing bill. This is a Senate bill. Senate Bill 8. And it is the housing recommending that we support this. It was introduced on 1/8/25 to the Senate Committee, Health and Human Services. There's a hearing date on 1/29 after adjournment. And the main bill sponsors, the name of the bill, I'm sorry, is a Just Necessary Document Program. The main bill sponsors are Senators Kipp, who's a Democrat, and Henriksen, who's a Democrat, and Representative Froelich, who's a Democrat. Right now, there isn't a fiscal note. It was made permanent by Senate Bill 2118, and it was currently funded at $300,000. There's been some proposal that it be raised up to $600,000. That'll be difficult in this legislature, but anyway, it's concerning adjustments to the Necessary Document Program administered by the Office of Health Equity and the Department of Public Health and Environment. And housing has taken over the bill because it's also intended to assist many homeless people who have lost their personal documents necessary in seeking housing, jobs, and those kind of things. It would entitle anyone who is eligible for this program to get duplicate copies of documents without being subject to fees or other charges. And we're supporting this under the league positions: housing to provide a decent home and suitable living environment for everyone, and under income assistance, support income assistance programs based on need that provides decent, adequate standards for food, clothing, and shelter. And I'm the sponsor of this particular bill, the key contact. So, but we're asking for support on this bill.
Thank you, Joe. That's really helpful information. And yes, it's very hard to obtain housing, to say the least, if you've got no documentation. Thank you for highlighting that. Do we have questions from the group for Joe? Okay, seeing none. I will go ahead and add, I actually have dug into this bill a little bit for another group that I work with. And I will also point out that the categories of people that are eligible to get basically free essential documents are homeless, as Joe mentioned, but low income broadly, individuals who have lost their homes through fire or flooding or natural disaster, and victims of domestic violence that have essentially had to flee. So it's one of those bills that's got a huge impact on housing, of course, but it does tend to impact a lot of people, and has got a Jedi component to it as well. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. Anyone opposed to housing's request for support? Okay, seeing none, we will go down as a support. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Kate, I think you had another, one of the other ones that we were gonna present right off the bat.
Yeah, this is a House bill, and like you mentioned, it's a low number. It was introduced on the first day of session on the 8th. This is House Bill 25-1004, which the title is No Pricing Coordination between Landlords. And it's pretty self-explanatory by its title, which is really lovely. It's been assigned to Business Affairs and Labor Committee rather than Housing, even though it is directly related to landlords because it is about business practices. The hearing date is the 29th of January, and the primary sponsors are Representatives Woodrow and Mabry. We don't have any Senate sponsors just yet. There is no fiscal note yet, but there will be some costs associated with the administration of the enforcement position on this bill. This bill was basically introduced as a follow-on to last year's failed anti-algorithmic processes and software being used by landlords in coordination with other business entities who are managing or renting or leasing property to tenants, where we were trying to eliminate this practice from the industry because it is anti-competitive and it really does fall within the price fixing structure of antitrust. And but it's not been clear enough, and there's still ongoing legal cases going on right now, civil cases, as well as I think some criminal cases in terms of the antitrust features. How this thing operates is that landlords will be required to not engage in a third-party gathering of subscribers' information. Basically, it's a subscription service that the landlords and or the management companies agree to abide by the recommendations of the software developers and the software subscription service to set their rents at a market rate that is appropriate based on the other market rates that the other landlords are using. How it's been done in the past was the landlords would and the management companies would crunch the numbers themselves based on publicly available sources instead of privately available sources, which is what the software subscription services to landlords provides. Let's see. This has been a really big problem as more and more very large funded corporations, private equity firms, hedge funds have become interested in for rent ownership of large development projects, and they change hands fairly often, but regardless, they use the subscription service for across the whole market whenever a large owner or a large management company is involved. A violation of this, of the conditions in this bill would constitute an illegal restraint of trade or commerce. So if they're doing this activity, it does constitute an illegal restraint of trade. The violations include, and this is just a basic bullet list, a landlord or agent or representative or subcontractor of landlord submitting or contracting with or otherwise exchanging any form of consideration in return for the services. So that defines that the landlord is contracting with these other groups. A coordination from facilitating an agreement among landlords that restricts competition with respect to dwelling units, which includes performing a coordinating function. And two or more landlords, it also prohibits two or more landlords from engaging in consciously parallel pricing coordination. The enforcement of this falls under the Division of Housing within the Department of Local Affairs, DOLA. And they are required to develop and undertake a public education program designed to inform Colorado residents of the provisions of this bill. And this is where the incurring of additional costs may be included, but they haven't been specified yet. There is a petition clause rather than a safety clause for enactment, so it will be subject to a petition and a referendum if people feel like that's necessary, so that the voters then vote in on it. Our league positions are as follows: responsibility in the nationwide effort to achieve equality of opportunity for access to housing resides with government at all levels and with the private sector. Builders, lending institution, realtors, labor unions, business and industry, news media, civic organization, educational institution, churches, and private citizens have this responsibility. This is from the Statement of Position on Fair Housing Criteria from the Impact on Issues 2024 to 2026, page 144, or I'm sorry, 141. The other positions are that we support policies to provide a decent home and suitable living environment for everyone. And we support policies that secure equal rights and equal opportunity for all and promote social and economic justice. The supporting organizations so far are the American Economic Liberties Project, Community Economic Defense Project, and Conservation Colorado. I'm the bill summary author and I'm the key contact, and that's my spiel.
Thank you, Kate. That was really great information.
So
Any questions from the group?
Well, wait.
There, did you have a question?
Okay, just a minute. Let me find my page. Ah, where'd it go? Oh, here we go. Where am I? Okay. So DOLA is going to be the enforcer on this? This is an enforcer.
Yeah, they're gonna manage the program, but the way it looks to me, it's gonna also there's another bill coming. This was the other one that I was gonna be presenting possibly today, and that's Senate Bill 20, which is gonna be setting up law enforcement provisions for renters and landlords, where the Attorney General of the state can refer anything to criminal and or civil litigation if infractions occur by landlord or incurred by landlords.
This is the
So
Division of Housing in DOLA.
DOLA is going to manage the educational and informational aspects so that renters know what their rights are. They're not going to do the enforcement section. People will be able to bring suit if it's necessary through legal means, because this is any violations would be a violation of state statute.
But for somebody to bring suit, they have to have the money to do that.
Except fair that the Colorado Poverty Law Project represents people in litigation matters for landlord tenant disputes for free. And we do have a lot of availability for representation for people without means. And district attorneys.
I'm just skeptical, I guess, because I know what goes on with metro districts, and
this is in the Division of
there's
Housing.
a lot of reporting that goes on, but there's
Correct.
no enforcement or anything else. So that's why.
Except that they're breaking a law that would be enforceable by district attorneys as well. And it doesn't necessarily require an individual to bring a case. the district attorneys will be able to bring cases as well.
And Jeff, please jump in as well.
I just want to point out, this is the Division of Housing in DOLA, not the Division of Local Government.
Okay.
No, not Division of Local Government, Division of Local Affairs.
No,
The
it's the,
Division
they're
of
both in the,
Housing.
they're
They're
both in
both-
the
Division of-
department. They're both
the
in the
division-
Department of Local Affairs, and FAIR has worked with the Division of Local Government to a great extent.
Right.
Wanted to
Division
point
of
that out.
Local Affairs has a division of housing that runs all of the informational sections, so HOAs, you know, people that are homeowners as well as renters have access to the information that they need to protect their rights.
So Jeff, are you saying that that division has more clout and uses it?
Well, they're a totally different organization. They don't do anything like the Division of Local Government does.
Right.
There are other divisions in the Department of Local Affairs as well, besides
Yeah,
those two. It's got a lot of different things going on.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for the clarification of which subdivision is going to actually manage this information flow.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, is anyone opposed to us taking a support position on this? Okay, seeing none, we will go down as a support.
And remember that there is this really wonderful and big Senate Bill 20 that's going to be, I'm going to be also doing the summary for at, and it may come up for an email vote if we get a hearing date that's sooner than our next meeting. But it's going to heavily support district attorneys in all jurisdictions for taking action against violators of any of our legal statutes and the infractions that are caused by landlords that are currently just blown off. Currently, they just pay fines and say, oops, sorry. So that bill is going to be significant in helping helping other governmental entities enforce these violation enforcements. So thank you.
Is it providing money as well, or are they going to have to depend on their own funds?
Well, district attorneys always rely on their own monies, and so
Right.
does the Attorney General's office.
And before we get into the details of that one, I do want to make sure that we get through the rest of our list. So
Yeah.
I'll make sure that we are down for our support on House Bill 1004, and then we will loop back to, wait, did I get that down right?
Yeah, and then loop back to Senate Bill 20 when
20,
that comes up.
and I also have you guys down for Senate Bill 2 that we'll loop back if we have some time. Otherwise,
Okay.
we'll plan on discussion next meeting or email vote, depending on what's needed based on scheduling. All right, thank you, housing team. Let's move over to the education team. Kathy, I think you have Senate Bill 27 for us.
I do. Let me tell you about it. It's trauma-informed school safety practices. It is, I'm getting some feedback. I don't know if, okay. It was introduced on the first day of the session. It has some DEI elements to it. And the fiscal note just popped up today. I was looking at that. There are some information was just popping up today. The prime sponsors were Senator Janet Marchman and Republican Joseph. And I'm going to tell you now so I don't forget. There's a fiscal note of 146,250, so it's low. And that's just for 1 year. Okay. On or before September 1st of 2025, the Office of School Safety will convene and oversee a work group to develop best practices for the use of trauma-informed practices to conduct school safety drills. The work group will obtain input from parents and students who reflect the diversity of the state regarding race, ethnicity, immigration status, socioeconomic status, geography, and disability. The work group will identify the intended outcomes of trauma-informed practices, will identify best practices for incorporating trauma-informed practices into school safety drills to respond to different types of school safety incidences. We'll use the identified best practices on how to implement trauma-informed practices in elementary and secondary schools. So they're differentiating between the age groups with that. The work group will write a report of their findings and recommendations and differentiating between the needs of elementary and secondary. Groups that are supporting this bill so far are the American Federation of Teachers, Cherry Creek School District, the Colorado Association of School Executives, the Colorado Education Association, and the Colorado Psychiatric Society, and Littleton Public Schools. Okay, I already told you about that part. I'm just trying to see if there's anything that I just jotted down really quickly. Okay. The league positions for this include discipline is an essential to learning success, and it is an essential to schools that schools must provide safe environments where learning can and does happen. We support policies and programs that promote the well-being and encourage the full development and ensure the mental and physical safety of all children. To achieve this goal, the league supports continued oversight by an adequate trained staff. The league views early intervention and prevention measures as effective in helping children reach their full potential, and the proposed school employee training can help achieve these early interventions. There was a bill in the last session with basically the same title as this one, but that one really focused on bullying and harassment with children and staff, and that this bill does not address, since this is a lot more focused on that one. That previous bill was PI'd in the Senate Education Committee. I'm the point of contact, and any questions?
Jeanette, go ahead.
The Boulder League had a meeting with your legislators, and Senator Marchman was present, since she covers a little sliver of Boulder County, and mentioned this bill. And, you know, I'm sort of sitting there going, wow, what a common sense bill, particularly when you're dealing with really younger children and you're going through some pretty, you know, could be kind of serious, scary stuff for them. And I think I hope this is going to get through, because it just seemed like it was such common sense.
Thank you. She teaches in the Thompson district, so she knows. She's been a math teacher for quite a while here. So yeah. Cindy, I think I see your hand.
Yeah, sorry, I can't seem to be able to raise my hand. I think I logged in under the Jeffco. Anyway, long story. But yeah, I think trauma-informed practices, it's really the new thing in dealing with trauma and kids. And so that is a really traumatic thing, that just doing the drills is traumatic for them. But I think funding is an issue. And so probably we're going to see it split out as they adopt, you know, using trauma-informed practices in lots of different areas. So I strongly support this one.
Thank you. Yeah, I was pleased that the fiscal note on this wasn't huge, because that would have been unrealistic to
Mhm.
try for that. And I think, there's such a push for supporting student mental health, which is really big right now. So I think that's, which is evident in the lobbyists so far with this bill. But I think a worthy bill for us to support.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to raise my hands, and I've, I'm young. I should know these things, but I don't. I apologize. The reason this bill matters so much as a mother of 4 children in DPS is that if it isn't dictated by the state, no one's going to do anything. My daughter did not want to go back to school, my oldest, after the first drill that she I hate to say lived through, and now since then, like, I can't tell you how traumatic the East School shootings, 3 in a 3-month period, were for her. And everyone acts like, well, what's your problem? She asked for extra support, and the guidance counselor said that to her. What's your problem? We called the face. DPS is really bad. They offer nothing. So that's, if the answer is, what's your problem? Isn't this normal for you yet? Is what some of us are getting. I can only imagine what's happening in rural areas like the ones where I was raised. So yes, we need this bill, and I'm happy to talk to anybody who disagrees. Like, these kids need this direct language. We can't, there's nothing left to shield them from. They've seen it all.
Thank you, MK.
Well, thank you all for the discussion on that and the information on the bill, Kathy. Is anyone opposed to us supporting it? All right, we will be a support on Senate Bill 27. And thanks so much, Kathy and the education team. All right, let's move over to news access and literacy. Linda, I think you have 1069 for us.
Right, I do. So House Bill 25-1069 is a bill to increase stakeholder participation concerning increasing stakeholder participation in the lawmaking process through the early publishing of bills. It was introduced and assigned to the State Civic, Military and Veterans Affair on January 8th, and it will be heard on January 27th. Representative Luck is the sponsor. So far, as of yesterday, she was the only sponsor. It doesn't have a fiscal note yet. I imagine it will. It provides for a process and a publicly accessible webpage on the General Assembly website that will allow a legislator to publish during the interim between 2 legislative sessions the titles and or drafts of bills they are considering sponsoring during the upcoming session. Each publication must include a disclaimer stating that the title or draft is subject to change. They can only publish the bills 90, 60, or 30 days before the upcoming session. Only one version of the bill may be published. Only the primary sponsor may remove the published bill early. News Access and Literacy supports it because it increases government transparency and provides barrier-free access to information in that there is no charge for the information, and it will be posted on a publicly accessible web page. Our support is based on citizens' right to know and the local news position, and I am the contact.
Thanks, Linda. Questions for Linda? Any discussion? Peggy, go ahead.
Yeah, so is it mandatory, or people just can post their bills if they want to?
They may, it's not mandatory.
Anybody else? All right. Is anyone opposed to us supporting the bill? Okay, seeing none, we will go down as a support on House Bill 1069. And just editorializing a bit, I think this is maybe one of the only opportunities we might have to support a bill that is being run by LAC. So. Yeah, so it provides kind of a nice opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
All right, let's turn to immigration. I think our team, Shanna and Peggy, have got Senate Bill 47. And I just want to point out to everybody that Shanna is a new member of LAC, so warm welcome.
See, I'm already going rogue with no microphone. Thank you. I am introducing Senate Bill 25-047, which is the enforcement of the federal immigration law. This is a copy of a bill from last year, House Bill 24-1128. It has some of the tenets of the former bill, but also introduces some new provisions. The current law prohibits a person from being arrested while at a courthouse or attending a court proceeding. This new bill would repeal that. Current law prohibits probation officers from providing information about individuals to federal immigration authorities. This new bill would repeal that. And current law prohibits the privatization of immigration detention facilities, and this bill would repeal that. So those are the tenets from the old bill. This new bill also introduces the following: prohibits local government from passing any ordinance or policy that would prohibit a police officer, local official, or local government employee from cooperating with federal officials with regard to the immigration status of a person. This new bill would also require a peace officer who has probable cause to believe that a person is not legally in the U.S. and report this person to federal immigration and custom officials. And finally, it would require local government to provide notice to peace officers of their duty to report. We are asking for the League to oppose this bill based on the League's current positions of the League supports a system for individuals living in the country without legal permission to earn legal status, including citizenship, paying taxes, studying civics, and meeting other relevant criteria. The League supports due process for all persons, including the right to a fair hearing, right to counsel, right of appeal, and right to humane treatment. And finally, the League does not support deporting these immigrants who have no history of major and/or violent criminal activity. In transition to a reformed system, the League supports provisions for unauthorized immigrants already in the country to earn legal status. And I am the lead on this bill. Oh, I didn't tell you who the sponsors are. It is sponsored by Senator Mark Baisley, Representative Max Brooks, and Representative Chris Richardson. It was introduced on 1/8. The previous bill was postponed indefinitely, and there is no hearing yet scheduled for this bill, and it may also be PI'd.
Thank you, Shanna. That is a great first summary. We really appreciate that. We've got a line of hands. Let's start with lots of questions and discussion. Mary Ann, jump in.
Can you hear me? I got a new laptop and I don't know whether it works.
Yep, we hear you.
Okay. Can we strongly oppose?
Yay.
Yes, it looks like there's some early agreement to do that. So if the team is okay with that recommendation, that's the vote we can consider.
Thank you.
All right, Kathy, go ahead.
Just a quick kind of anecdotal.
Kathy, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't specify which. Kathy Wilson, and then Kathy Wilson's to start.
Yep. This is just a little anecdotal data. When we lived in Southern California, we saw an enactment of a bill that was similar to this, and we saw profiling of people who just looked like they were Latina, along the freeways there. The police would pull them over just because they looked at it and they might have been living there, their entire life. So this is a heinous bill.
And
in my
Kathy, I would
opinion.
add that just recently, like last week in Bakersfield, California, there was a raid, yeah, very similar raid that just happened. And I would argue that this bill is advocating for profiling. If you
Yes,
tell a police officer that if you have probable cause and you think they're here illegally, just assume they are. And I find that heinous.
yeah, it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Eppersberger, please jump in.
Yeah, I agree that we should strongly oppose this bill. There are efforts underway to undermine the current prohibition on local law enforcement assisting ICE. I know Douglas County brought a suit. It was dismissed, but there was a resolution in Douglas County on Tuesday to use county resources to support federal immigration policies. So there are counties that do want to use local resources to help with deportation of immigrants. And also, aside from the immigration consequences, which are very severe, but it also would divert county resources into federal law enforcement. So there are representative government kinds of issues involved in that as well.
Thank you for that information, Kathy. That's helpful. Mary Ann, I see you have a hand up.
Yeah, listening to the conversation, does this run the risk also of setting a precedent for turning local law enforcement and government and private citizens into basically forced to be agents of the federal government? I mean, I think we're looking at a slippery slope. Forced to use state resources to uphold federal laws. It scares the hell out of me. I mean, other than the whole civil rights thing, the implications are Orwellian.
I would agree. And there actually was something introduced in Missouri last month offering, for lack of a better word, a bounty to private citizens for turning in people they thought were illegal immigrants. So slippery slope is a great term and pretty terrifying stuff that we're seeing come out.
Step one in having brown shirts, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for the discussion and thoughts around this. Is anyone in disagreement with a strongly oppose? Okay, seeing none, we will be a strongly oppose on Senate Bill 47. Thank you to the immigration team.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, let's head over to our fiscal team. I'm not sure if Jeff is still with us. I know he has an appointment. If not, Maud, to discuss House Bill 1071.
Maud's still here, I think. So I can do it if you want.
If you have time, Jeff, please jump in.
Okay.
If not, I think Maud is ready to go too.
Okay, then.
Jeff, do you want me to do it?
Would you like to? I mean, you finish it up, so.
I don't care. This is, I could, how about I start and you provide the color commentary? It's, I'm sorry, I was trying to do two things at once and totally flunked both. This bill is so badly written that we're not entirely sure what it does. what it says it does is it takes it, and there is one, it's called Distribution of State Money, House Bill 25-1071, if someone wants to drop the link into the chat, which I was trying to do and flunked. It has one sponsor, Representative Sukla, a freshman from the Southwest Colorado. It has a hearing in House Finance Monday, February 3rd. Revenue team recommends a strongly oppose. It would take all the money from 4 state funds and give it to the counties. And the funds are the Marijuana Tax Cash Fund, the Public School Capital Construction Assistance Cash Fund, both of which help schools with capital expenses, not just, as far as I can tell, not just new school buildings, but roofs and a new furnace and a new air conditioner and just keeping their buildings intact. Peace Officer Training and Support Fund, and the Affordable Housing Financing Fund. And so we are recommending a strongly opposed, backed by and prodded by our colleagues in both the housing and education teams who say, this is terrible. So it would take all of that money that would go to schools, to peace officers, training, and to affordable housing, and send it to the counties. And we oppose doing that on a couple of positions. Support policies to provide a decent home and suitable living environment for every American family. And in the school section, education section of our state positions for action, the League supports assuring the availability of adequate facilities. That said, that's all the bill said. It doesn't repeal the sections of statute that say the money from these various funds need to go to these purposes. So we're not entirely sure that the counties wouldn't have to use the money for these purposes. But we still oppose the bill on good governance grounds, because if it passes as is, which we're pretty sure it won't, the lawyers would win, because there would be, I can't see school districts not suing, counties not suing, if they're told that they have to spend money in a certain way. So we're asking for strongly support, and I turn it over to Jeff to add color commentary and fix what I said that was wrong.
Well, I don't know much if there's much color about it, but we actually, Maud and I disagree about which would happen, whether all of the purposes of the money would travel with the money to the counties, and the tribes, by the way, the 2 Indian tribes also get it. So it's taking the money out of the state agencies that are doing these programs and giving it to each of the counties and the 2 tribes. So they either have to use it for the same purposes as it would have been if the state had spent it, or they won't. We don't know which one it is, but I'm sure that's going to get fixed. He hasn't found a co-sponsor so far that we know of for the bill. So I spoke to a member of the JBC last night at a town hall and asked about that bill, and she didn't think it was going to go anywhere. So I don't know if it's worth getting too worked up about, but we need to pay attention to it, I guess.
And for those acronymically challenged, JBC is the Joint Budget Committee, which sets the budget.
Thank you.
Any questions? Anyone opposing a strongly oppose?
Okay, looks like we are good to go. Strongly opposing House Bill 1071.
And thank you, Jeff, for you're the one who said they might actually have to do that same thing with that money. So
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Maud and Jeff, for that. And thanks to the entire fiscal team. I'll get our position recorded there. And with that, we will move over to our Environment and Natural Resources team. Shirley, I think you have Senate Bill 22 for us today. Shirley, I'm not hearing you. Are you on mute maybe? Let's see, I'm actually not seeing Shirley. Let's see. Is anyone else on the team in a place where you would want to discuss, or should we hold on this one? Okay, well, maybe we just hold, unless Shirley jumps back in. She may have had a connection issue. We'll hold on Senate Bill 22, and we can either take that up by email vote, or if it's not scheduled for a hearing before our next meeting, we can take it up then. But I'll follow up directly with Shirley. Okay.
it's scheduled for January 29th.
I don't know if that's
Which is before our next meeting on the 31st.
okay. So if Shirley doesn't pop back in, Anne, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just tell you what this bill is about, and it's Shirley's still working on writing it up, and it hasn't actually gone to the whole team for a vote. Using AI for wildfire mitigation activities, and it's following up on a pilot project that was done that over the last couple of years. It's recommended by the Wildfire Matters Interim Committee, and I think it looks pretty good. So I think Shirley will probably present it next time.
Okay, thanks for that update, Anne. Yeah, and we can definitely get it out for an email vote once the team is all set and ready to go.
Andrea, would this be a good time to chat about whether we need a meeting next week?
Yeah, I think that probably is a good point, so we don't forget about that before we adjourn. So during our third advocacy professional development webinar, I think we had mentioned to people to potentially hold the date for next Friday, with the idea that we may have so many bills that we would need that overflow meeting. Last year, we just had a fire hose of bills at the start, and there were so many that we were really struggling to keep up in those first couple of meetings and establish positions before the hearing dates. My sense is that we are not in that position this year, and we can stick with our biweekly meetings, but I want to get the perspective of the group, and kind of based on what the teams are assessing and what you all might know about what's to be introduced soon. Are people feeling like we're really going to have an onslaught within the next week or so that we would need to meet? Kathy, go ahead.
It's been uncharacteristically quiet for education so far. I know that we have an anti-book banning bill in public schools that's in the works, because 3 of us are on the stakeholder committee with that, but it's not urgent yet. So
okay. Thanks for that feedback, Kathy. Elaine, please jump in.
Yes, I think that I'm going to have to request a vote by mail, because our team hasn't really met yet. But the bill that we'll be talking about and asking for a vote on is SB 25-045, and it's the healthcare payment system analysis, which this is the third time it's being introduced and was supported both times by the league. So I will write that up, and in our committee will meet, and so that that I can ask you for a supporting vote. The difference in the bill is the fiscal note, how it's going to be paid for. And I'm not sure, in reading the fiscal note, I'm not sure exactly what it is $896, because the rest of the bill will be paid for by gifts and grants and donations.
Yes. Thank you for raising that, Elaine. We definitely can do an email vote on this once the team has had a chance to connect and make sure that we're all ready. But yeah, this is definitely one where there's been some changes to the funding structure in light of the budget situation. So that would be an important point to note in the information you all get out, but we can certainly do an email vote on that one. Let's see, and then I see a comment from NK that you're thinking we don't need a meeting. Anybody feel strongly that we do?
Oh, I'm just saying that, like, I'm not going to be pushing for one, but if anybody else wants to meet, I'm not going to say no. I'm so sorry I wasn't clear.
Oh, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's been kind of my sense too. I would say that things do seem a little quieter than last year. So I personally am not feeling like we'll have a hard time keeping pace. Of course, things can always change, but Maude, Linda, does that sound right to you that we stick with our biweekly schedule?
Yep.
Okay. That sounds great. We will meet 2 weeks from today. We do have about 15 minutes left in today's meeting, and we do have 2 housing bills that if the team, if that is sufficient time for the team, if you're ready to go on those, we could maybe eliminate an email vote on the 2 of those, and I can loop back to housing.
We might have time for one, but we have a housing policy table that starts at 11. So
it's totally up to you. If you guys prefer an email vote, that's okay too.
Kate, do you want to quickly do your Senate bill that you talked about earlier?
Sure. I can do that. Let me pull up my document, if you can hang on for just 2 seconds. Essentially, I gave you the broad strokes in my previous presentation, and now I'm going to attempt to get my document up so I don't misspeak. And it's just going to take me a sec here. I wasn't ready for this. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Kate. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
No, that's okay. I just need to look for my decline. Hold on 1 second. This will only take a moment. Okay, here we go. This is a really interesting and wonderful bill. This is exactly what we needed as a follow-on to last year's for cause eviction protections for tenants and renters and landlords. There's protections for them as well. But this is a really helpful bill that was brought forward on the 8th of January. Now I need my glasses. There's no hearing date yet set on it, and its title is Senate Bill 2525020, Tenant and Landlord Law Enforcement. So it serves both parties, tenants and landlords. There is no fiscal note as yet, and the prime sponsors so far are Senators Weissman and Gonzalez and Representatives Lindsay and Mabry. As the means to secure enforcement of renters' rights under the law, this bill grants Attorney General of the state or county district attorneys the authority to bring criminal or civil actions against landlords for infractions of existing laws. Section 5 establishes an independent receivership mechanism as a remedy for violations of applicable laws and regulations by the owners of a multifamily residential property. Section 1 of the bill basically clarifies the Attorney General has the power to initiate and bring civil and criminal actions to enforce the state landlord tenant laws. Section 2 makes corresponding conforming amendments to the Attorney General's statutory powers and duties. Sections 3 and 4 grant counties, cities, and counties and cities, and municipalities to the power to initiate and bring civil and criminal actions to enforce these state landlord tenant laws. The Section 5 is the most robust part of this bill. It spans a couple of pages, but drilling down on it, it establishes a receivership mechanism that is available for as a remedy for violations of applicable laws and regulations by the owner of a multifamily residential property. And for a primary example, think the city of Aurora. The Attorney General's office, a county, a city, or a county, I don't know why I put that in twice, or a municipality may all apply to a district court for the appointment of a receiver to operate a residential property. The bill establishes that the process for this district court appointing a receiver, including requiring a hearing and an order for an appointment that specifies the duties of the receiver and the criteria for qualifying as a receiver. No sooner than 180 days after the district court appoints a receiver, the owner of the relevant property, the Attorney General, county, city, or government municipality may submit an application to the district court seeking the termination of the receivership. So if that gets cured, all these problems get cured 180 days later, the entities that bring the action can request the vacating of that action. League positions. As a member of Low-Income Housing Coalition's Women and Housing Task Force, League of Women Voters US endorsed recommendations predicated on the conviction that every person and family should have decent, safe, and affordable housing. That's Impact on Issues, 24-26 edition, page 174, under Housing Supply. The League of Women Voters of the United States supports violence prevention programs in all communities and action to support such. Public and private development and coordination of programs that emphasize the primary prevention of violence, active role in government and social institutions preventing violent behavior, the allocation of public monies in government programs to prevent violence. And that's also from Impact on Issues, page 177. The supporting organizations so far are, no surprise, the city of Aurora. And there's only one opposing organization. I've never heard of them and I haven't looked them up yet, but it's called Leading Age. And it's all one word, Leading with a capital A, Age, Colorado. I'm shepherding this bill and you can contact me with any questions or whatnot. And that's it. Again, we're recommending a support position.
All right, thank you, Kate, for that information. Very helpful summary.
Excuse me, I just want to make sure I've got the right bill in the chat. It was 25020?
Correct.
Okay.
Tenant and landlord. Yeah, Senate bill. Tenant and landlord law enforcement is the title.
Okay, sorry, Andrea. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no problem.
And,
No problem,
just
Linda.
a couple of extra comments, as Fair was talking about before, concerns about enforcement. The landlord tenant laws have suffered from lack of enforcement, except, you know, in the courts with the folks that are providing pro bono work. And this really gives teeth to the landlord tenant laws that is very needed. There's been this dichotomy between the corporate ownership of rental properties that are pretty much abusing the laws and just paying penalties occasionally, and you know, the small landlords who are kind of suffering from some of these laws that have been passed because they're trying to get at the corporate abuse. So this, I think, really is going to help put all that into perspective. So I think it's a really important bill for housing.
And Kathy, could you tell me the name of that organization again that you said does pro bono?
Colorado Poverty Law Center.
Colorado Poverty Law Center. Okay.
Law Project.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Law
CPLP.
Project.
And there are others
Colorado
too.
Poverty Law Project. Okay.
Yeah,
And
there
there's
are
others.
others. There are others too, but that's one of the main ones.
Okay.
Yeah, Legal Aid Society is another that is another resource. But this is really it is aimed directly towards these residential, multifamily residential property owners that are not enforcing the safety concerns, you know, when there's violence in their buildings. In Aurora, this has been a huge issue, and it's blown up into the national media and made it into presidential campaigns. And you know, this is one way to use what we already have and expand it in such a way so we give the Attorney General and all the other district courts and other legal entities for municipalities the ability to go after these miscreants.
I may see why that Leading Age is opposing this. They are comprised of assisted living communities, home and community-based services, independent living, senior housing, life plan communities, nursing homes, programs for inclusive care of the elderly. I imagine they get a lot of negative complaints, some of these places.
If they're not abiding by the laws, they should have complaints.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And they should be subject to landlord-tenant laws regardless. If it's a tenancy. If it's an ownership situation or a healthcare facility situation, I don't think that qualifies as a tenant. Like my mom in a nursing home is not a tenant, she's a client.
Mon, go ahead. I see you have a hand as well.
I support this. I supported supporting this bill, but Thalia just sent a text with a screenshot from POTUS. Today, what I'm affirming, what I've long believed, what 3/4 of the states have ratified, the 28th Amendment is the law of the land, guaranteeing all Americans equal rights and protections under the law, regardless of sex. The Equal Rights Amendment is now the law of the land.
Oh my God.
But not really. Read the fine print.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
I didn't
there's
get the
not really in there.
Oh.
Just kidding.
What?
You mean another state came forward and voted for the ERA? Is that what happened?
No, there were
They
enough
already
states.
had enough as of 2018.
It was a timing thing.
The news release further states that it's not really Biden's say, and it's an issue that's going to go to the courts ultimately.
It'll for sure go to the courts, I think.
And it
but
probably
still.
Yeah.
And
I don't
the
know if it
archivist
won't
the archivist has declined based on legal opinion, so that's not going to happen.
Right.
Okay. Sorry.
The timing issue is what's going to kill it in any court.
I don't know if anyone happened to, I want to say, I don't know who the exact sponsoring entity of the webinar was, but I found out about it through LWVUS. the webinar that Kristen Gillibrand did on this not too long ago. It was maybe 6 weeks ago, a month ago. And I thought she raised a good point that, you know, yes, there's going to be legal challenges. And yes, the Supreme Court is not, the composition is not anything that gives us hope. But, you know, at least make people go on record. Like, we know exactly where they stand. If, you know, Biden can put it forward and let the legal challenges come, people are on record as to rejecting this. And that tells us, you know, probably already what we already knew. But, you know, it's still helpful. And her other point was, yeah, there's a lot of commentary that this isn't a good time, but there's never a good time. So even though the climate and the circumstance aren't what we would like them to be, I guess I still take this as a good thing. We'll see what happens, but I don't know. That's my 2 cents. I don't know if
it's a
anybody else
good time. It's a good time.
When I'm referring to timing, it's because of the timing restrictions in the adoption by the states, and that wasn't met. And so some states signed on afterwards, and then some states want to change their vote now. And so there's a whole bunch of court issues, but I have a feeling that they'll fail. But I agree, it is important to put it forward and have it processed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it takes us, you know, there'll be a fight, a legal fight to come, but I think it actually does take us a further step down the road. Well, thank you for that update, Maude. I know we were still, we're about out of time. I don't want to short shrift the housing team on this bill. Kate, I want to turn back to you on the bill and kind of pick up the thread of where we were on discussion, or if there's any additional questions.
Does anybody have any questions why this would be worthy of our support?
Okay, I think we're good there. So we will go down as a support on Senate Bill 20, and we will do an email vote on Senate Bill 2, as well as maybe a couple of other things that the teams are still hashing out a bit. But that takes us perfectly to 11 o'clock. Thank you, Housing, for getting us in under the wire. Thank you all for your work and participation in today's discussion. We will see you 2 weeks from today. And please get in touch if there are any questions or anything we can do to help in the meantime. But everyone have a fabulous holiday weekend.